Hollywood never learns. It keeps turning models, wrestlers, and pop stars into movie actors, and the results never change. Beautiful faces, terrible performances. Some growl their lines, others whisper like they're hiding from the script, and a few seem to forget they're even in a movie, yet somehow they're still famous. So why does Hollywood keep hiring people who can't act? Is it charisma, luck, or proof that fame is stronger than talent? Let's find out as we count down 15 more movie stars who prove that success doesn't need skill, just a spotlight. 15. Vin Diesel. Vin Diesel built his empire on one voice, that deep, gravelly growl that sounds like it's echoing from the bottom of an oil drum. It's a voice that made him famous, powerful, and almost untouchable. But somewhere between Fast and Furious sequels and self-serious monologues about family, Vin Diesel stopped being an actor and became a parody of himself. He's not a performer anymore. He's a brand one that runs entirely on muscles, mumbles, and car metaphors. From the beginning, his style was simple. Minimal dialogue, maximum attitude. It worked in Pitch Black and XXX when mystery felt like charisma. But as his career expanded, his range didn't. Every role became the same, the slow-talking, emotionless tough guy with a tragic past and a tank top. Critics joked that he acts like he's afraid to move his face. Even in emotional scenes, he delivers lines like he's narrating a car commercial. "I don't have friends. I got family." It's supposed to be heartfelt, but it lands like an AI reading a Hallmark card. Reviewers have long had a love-hate relationship with Diesel's work. The Guardian called him an actor trapped in his own myth. Variety wrote that his gravitas feels glued on. Fans adore him for his dedication, but even they admit that his performances rarely change from one decade to the next. It's not acting anymore, it's repetition. His films blur together into one endless, engine-revving monologue about loyalty and vengeance. Still, Diesel's appeal is undeniable. He's turned limitation into identity. Audiences know exactly what they're getting: the same glare, the same gravel, the same speech about family, and somehow that predictability comforts them. In an industry obsessed with reinvention, he's the rare constant. Even as his co-stars come and go, Vin Diesel remains unshakably, unapologetically Vin Diesel. Off-screen, he defends his style fiercely. When asked about criticism, he once said, "Subtlety is overrated." It was pure Diesel, part defiance, part misunderstanding. He truly believes his stoicism is strength, that his silence carries meaning. Maybe he's right, in a way. He's built a billion-dollar franchise on barely changing his tone. That's not luck. That's consistency. Vin Diesel's acting may never win awards, but it's oddly poetic. A man who confuses stillness with depth, simplicity with power. He's proof that in Hollywood, personality can outdrive talent, and sometimes a single gravelly sentence about family is all it takes to make audiences believe you mean it. 14. Gal Gadot. When Gal Gadot first appeared as Wonder Woman, audiences fell in love instantly. She was stunning, graceful, and radiated strength. Her smile felt genuine, her energy magnetic, a hero that looked like she'd stepped straight out of a comic book. For a while she was Hollywood's golden girl, the woman who could do no wrong. But once the dust settled, one uncomfortable truth became hard to ignore. Gal Gadot looks perfect on screen, but she can't really act. Her performances are always polished, but they rarely feel alive. Every emotion seems filtered through that same calm, poised expression. Whether she's crying, laughing, or saving the world, her face barely moves. In Wonder Woman 1984, she was supposed to be heartbroken, but she looked like she was posing for a luxury watch commercial. In thrillers like Red Notice or Heart of Stone, her line delivery felt robotic, every word carefully rehearsed but stripped of soul. Critics have called her a cinematic screensaver, beautiful, motionless, and strangely hypnotic. Audiences began to notice too. As her filmography grew, so did the memes. People joked that her emotional range was smile or serious, and nothing in between. Reviewers pointed out how her charisma as a person didn't translate to character depth. The Guardian once said, "She's all presence, no pulse." And while that sounds cruel, it captured the essence of Gadot's problem: she's an icon, not an actress. Yet, Hollywood can't quit her. Studios keep casting her because she sells fantasy, the image of perfection wrapped in sincerity. She embodies the illusion audiences crave: power without flaws, beauty without danger, charm without complexity. Her acting doesn't challenge anyone, it soothes them. She's not there to be real, she's there to be radiant. Off-screen, Gadot has leaned into that aura. She speaks softly in interviews, projects kindness, and avoids controversy until she doesn't. During the pandemic, her ill-fated Imagine video, meant as inspiration, became one of the most ridiculed celebrity moments online. People saw not a hero, but a millionaire disconnected from reality. It was the first crack in her carefully built image and proof that charisma without authenticity eventually wears thin. Still, there's something almost admirable about her steadiness. Gal Gadot knows her limits and works within them. She's not chasing Oscars, she's chasing ideals. And maybe that's why she endures, because in a cynical industry, she still looks like she believes in what she's doing. Gal Gadot may never give a performance that breaks your heart, but she'll always give one that looks good doing it. In the end, she's the perfect metaphor for modern Hollywood: flawless, empty, and endlessly watchable. 13. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is one of the most successful entertainers alive, a global brand, a walking franchise, and a human mountain of charisma. He's conquered wrestling, television, and blockbuster cinema. He can make millions of people smile just by raising an eyebrow. But strip away the charm, the muscles, and the motivational speeches, and one thing becomes painfully clear: The Rock doesn't really act. He performs being The Rock. Every role, no matter the genre, ends up looking the same. The Rock as a jungle explorer, The Rock as a secret agent, The Rock as a dad, The Rock fighting a giant gorilla. He plays himself in different outfits, saying lines that sound like gym slogans. His delivery is always confident, but never convincing. The same smirk, the same squint, the same heroic head tilt. In Black Adam, his most hyped passion project, he delivered every line like it was carved in granite, heavy, serious, and utterly lifeless. Critics joked that his acting range goes from intense to very intense. For years, audiences didn't care. His charm was bulletproof. He was the antidote to Hollywood fatigue, the nice guy who worked hard, smiled often, and made movies feel like theme park rides. But lately, the magic's been fading. His films have started to blur together, each one a louder version of the last. Red Notice, Jungle Cruise, Black Adam, all high-budget showcases that felt strangely empty. Reviewers accused him of acting by brand management, more interested in controlling his image than serving the story. And maybe that's the truth. Johnson has become less an actor than a corporation, calculating, unstoppable, polished to the point of predictability. On set, he has creative control over scripts, lighting, even fight choreography, ensuring he never truly loses or looks weak. That power might protect his image, but it kills suspense. Watching him act is like watching a superhero movie on repeat. You know exactly how it ends before it starts. Still, his work ethic is undeniable. No one hustles harder. He trains at dawn, promotes endlessly, and treats his fans like friends. But somewhere between ambition and authenticity, he lost something essential: vulnerability. His characters never feel pain, confusion, or fear. They just flex through every obstacle. When asked about his critics, The Rock stays diplomatic. He talks about gratitude, audience connection, and doing the work. It's admirable, but also safe. Maybe too safe. Because great actors risk looking foolish. The Rock never risks anything. He's built an empire by avoiding failure, and that might be why his performances rarely succeed. In the end, Dwayne Johnson isn't a bad actor because he lacks talent. He's a bad actor because he refuses to stop being himself. Hollywood doesn't need more rock movies. It needs to see the man behind the brand. Until then, he'll keep doing what he does best, playing The Rock, perfectly, and nothing else. 12. Channing Tatum. Channing Tatum is living proof that Hollywood will always find a way to turn charm into a career. He started as a model, danced his way through Step Up, and suddenly became America's favorite himbo, the guy who looked too perfect to fail. For a while, that effortless charisma carried him. He didn't need to act, he just needed to show up. But as the roles grew heavier, and the expectations higher, one thing became impossible to ignore. Channing Tatum might be a great entertainer, but he's not a great actor. His early films revealed the problem right away. In Dear John and The Vow, he was supposed to play heartbroken lovers, but his blank stares and stiff delivery made it hard to believe he felt anything at all. Critics called him a human Ken doll, handsome, sincere, but emotionally empty. Even when tears streamed down his face, it looked like a photo shoot for cologne. When he spoke, every line landed with the same monotone rhythm, as if he were still reading off the script just out of frame. Things got better briefly when he leaned into comedy. 21 Jump Street and Magic Mike finally made sense of his limitations. His self-awareness became his greatest strength. He wasn't trying to be deep. He was funny, natural, even charmingly dumb. Audiences loved it. But as soon as he stepped outside that lane into dramas or action thrillers, the illusion shattered. In films like White House Down or Jupiter Ascending, he felt like a high schooler pretending to be an action hero. His expressions swung wildly between serious and lost, never landing anywhere human. Reviewers noticed. The Hollywood Reporter once said, "Tatum has the physique of a superhero and the emotional range of a man waiting for his coffee. Harsh, but not wrong. Even his admirers admit he's at his best when he's laughing at himself, not when he's trying to make us cry. His physicality makes him magnetic, but when the camera gets too close, the illusion fades." To his credit, Tatum knows his image. He doesn't fight it. In interviews, he calls himself a lucky guy who dances well and tries hard. There's no arrogance, just awareness. That humility has kept his career afloat even when the performances don't. He's likable, even when he's not convincing. And that likability, in modern Hollywood, might be the only acting skill that really matters. Channing Tatum may never deliver an Oscar-worthy performance, but maybe he doesn't need to. He's figured out the secret: play yourself, stay relatable, and let charisma do the heavy lifting. He's not the most talented man in Hollywood, just one of its most comfortable. And in a town that rewards image over depth, that might be the smartest move of all. 11. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger was never meant to blend into Hollywood. He was built to dominate it. When he arrived from Austria, barely speaking English and built like a statue, everyone thought he'd be a novelty act. Instead, he became one of the biggest movie stars of the 20th century. But behind the catchphrases, explosions, and legendary one-liners, there was always a simple truth. Arnold Schwarzenegger could sell any movie, he just couldn't act in most of them. His rise to fame was pure cinematic luck and charisma. In The Terminator, his robotic delivery and emotionless stare were perfect because he was literally playing a robot. Critics called it genius casting, not great acting, and it worked. But when he tried to carry emotional or dramatic roles, his accent, stiffness, and limited range quickly showed. In End of Days and Collateral Damage, his attempts at grief or tenderness landed like punchlines. He could lift a car but not a scene. His line readings sounded memorized phonetically, his expressions never quite matching the moment. Still, audiences adored him. Arnold's acting failures became part of his charm. The man who could barely pronounce half his dialogue somehow made it iconic. "I'll be back. Get to the chopper. Hasta la vista, baby." They weren't performances, they were moments of accidental genius. His lack of subtlety made him unforgettable. He didn't act the role. He became the meme before memes existed. Critics were never kind. The New Yorker once called him a mountain of muscle pretending to be human, while The Guardian said his emotional scenes were like watching a tank attempt ballet. But even those who mocked him couldn't deny his screen power. Arnold understood something most actors didn't: the camera loves conviction more than craft. He gave 100% to every ridiculous line, every impossible stunt, and audiences rewarded him for it. Off-screen, he turned his limitations into legacy. He laughed at himself, spoofed his own image, and leaned into self-parody with surprising intelligence. Movies like True Lies and The Last Action Hero proved he knew exactly what he was doing, a giant in on the joke. That self-awareness saved him from the fate of many other bad actors. Instead of being forgotten, he became beloved. Arnold's story is a Hollywood fable, a man who broke every rule of acting and still won the game. He couldn't express emotion, but he could command attention. He couldn't deliver nuance, but he could deliver spectacle. In a town obsessed with reinvention, he stayed defiantly himself, a living, breathing special effect. Arnold Schwarzenegger may never win an Oscar, but he didn't need to. He built a career on sheer presence, proving that sometimes being larger than life is better than being good. And in Hollywood, that's not a flaw, it's a superpower. 10. Cameron Diaz. Cameron Diaz burst into Hollywood like a burst of sunlight, loud, funny, irresistibly charming. From her debut in The Mask, she became the perfect mix of the girl next door and the dream you could never reach. Her smile alone could carry a scene, and for a while, that was enough. She danced, laughed, screamed, and giggled her way into superstardom. But as the years passed, a truth started to sink. In Cameron Diaz could light up a movie, but she couldn't always carry one. Her energy was her greatest gift and her greatest curse. In There's Something About Mary, her carefree chaos was perfect, messy, hilarious, and human. But in dramas or romantic films that required subtlety, her performance often fell flat. Critics noticed the same problem again and again. Every emotion felt exaggerated, every line a little too rehearsed. When she was supposed to be serious, she looked confused. When she was supposed to be sad, she smiled through it. Her acting was big, bright, and hollow, like a party that lasted too long. By the time she appeared in The Holiday and My Sister's Keeper, the cracks were obvious. Reviewers said she had the timing of a comedian and the emotional depth of a greeting card. Even her attempts at edgier roles like Vanilla Sky or In Her Shoes were met with polite shrugs. She was too polished to be raw, too modern to be vulnerable. Cameron wasn't bad because she didn't try. She was bad because she tried too hard. Still, Hollywood loved her for a while. She was the face of the late 1990s rom-com, a symbol of carefree glamour. Her personality was infectious, her laugh unforgettable. But audiences grew up, and the genre that made her famous started dying. Suddenly, her wide-eyed optimism felt out of place in a world that demanded realism. The magic was gone. And then, she vanished. At the height of her fame, Cameron Diaz walked away from acting entirely. "I just needed peace," she said years later. It was the most authentic line she'd ever delivered. In her absence, people realized what she truly brought to the screen, not depth or nuance, but joy. Maybe she wasn't built for heavy drama or Oscar speeches. Maybe her gift was simpler, making people feel good for 2 hours. Cameron Diaz will never be remembered as one of Hollywood's great actresses, but she'll always be remembered as one of its great energies, spontaneous, radiant, and utterly unpretentious. She may not have mastered the art of acting, but she mastered the art of presence. And in a business that runs on charm, sometimes that's all it takes to shine. 9. Ashton Kutcher. Ashton Kutcher became famous for being the guy every college kid wanted to be: goofy, good-looking, effortlessly cool. As Michael Kelso in That 70s Show, he was perfect. The lovable idiot who never quite understood the joke, but somehow stole every scene. His timing, charm, and physical comedy were spot on. But when Hollywood tried to make him a leading man, that same clueless charm became a curse. Because outside of sitcoms, Ashton Kutcher couldn't act his way through a serious scene if his life depended on it. His problem was never charisma, it was conviction. In The Butterfly Effect, he was meant to be a tormented man, haunted by trauma, but every emotional breakdown felt like an outtake from a parody. He didn't act grief, he announced it, like someone imitating emotion from memory. In romantic comedies like No Strings Attached or What Happens in Vegas, his performances were all smirk and no substance. Critics described him as a man who looks like he's playing himself but not very well. Even when the chemistry was there, the feeling wasn't. Hollywood kept giving him chances, hoping his likability would outweigh his lack of depth. But each attempt only proved the same point. Ashton Kutcher is great at being funny, terrible at being real. His expressions are too exaggerated, his sincerity too forced. When he cries, it looks like he's practicing for a commercial. When he delivers a heartfelt speech, it sounds like he's pitching a startup idea. There's a disconnect between how smart he is in real life, a successful investor and tech entrepreneur, and how hollow his acting feels. It's as if his brain refuses to believe the words coming out of his mouth. Critics eventually stopped being cruel and started being curious. The New York Times once wrote that Kutcher acts like a man embarrassed to be in his own movie. That line summed him up perfectly. His on-screen performances always carry a hint of self-consciousness, as if he's aware of the camera and waiting for someone to yell, "Prank!" Even in emotional moments, he can't seem to disappear into the role. He's always Ashton Kutcher, the celebrity pretending to be someone else. To his credit, Kutcher seems to know all of this. He's admitted that acting never came naturally to him, and that he's more passionate about building companies than making movies. And in a way, that honesty redeems him. He's one of the few bad actors who doesn't pretend otherwise. Instead of chasing critical approval, he turned his attention to causes he actually believes in, from tech innovation to anti-human trafficking activism. Ashton Kutcher's film career may be full of flops, but his life off-screen is anything but. He's a reminder that talent in one arena doesn't always translate to another, and that's okay. Because while his acting often feels empty, the man himself isn't. He just chose the wrong stage. He may never win an Oscar, but in the bigger picture, Ashton Kutcher already figured out what many real actors never do: you don't need to be believable on screen if you're authentic in life. 8. Katherine Heigl. For a brief shining moment, Katherine Heigl was everywhere. She had the beauty of a classic movie star, the timing of a born comedian, and a name that seemed destined for awards season. From Grey's Anatomy to Knocked Up and 27 Dresses, she became Hollywood's favorite romantic heroine, sweet, smart, and a little sarcastic. But as quickly as she rose, she fell even faster. Behind the smile and perfect hair, Katherine Heigl became one of the most disliked actresses in the business. A textbook case of how talent can't survive bad choices and worse reputation. On screen, Heigl was charming, but not transformative. Her acting felt safe, predictable, and polished to the point of sterility. In 27 Dresses, she carried the entire movie with enthusiasm, but critics said her performance was more sitcom than cinema. She played the same woman again and again, the control freak with a soft heart, until audiences stopped seeing a character and started seeing Heigl herself. Even when she tried to pivot into more serious roles, her delivery felt rehearsed, her emotions too neat. She never disappeared into the story. She hovered above it, perfect, but detached. The real downfall, however, happened off-screen. After calling Knocked Up sexist and criticizing Grey's Anatomy's writing, she quickly earned a reputation for being difficult. Her public image shifted from sweetheart to diva. Directors complained she was demanding. Writers accused her of hypocrisy. Once adored, she became radioactive. The Hollywood Reporter later called her the actress who talked her way out of a career. It was brutal and true. By the early 2010s, Heigl's box office pull was gone. Films like One for the Money and The Big Wedding bombed spectacularly, with critics labeling her a one-note actress without the note. What had once seemed confident now read as cold. What once felt bold now looked arrogant. Hollywood moved on, and the door she had slammed shut never fully reopened. To her credit, Heigl didn't vanish. She turned inward, producing, focusing on family, and even publicly reflecting on her mistakes. "I let my mouth get ahead of me," she once said. "I was just honest in the wrong room." There was humility in that confession, a sign that the person everyone hated might never have been a villain, just a woman untrained in Hollywood diplomacy. Looking back, Heigl's fall isn't just a story of bad acting or bad attitude. It's about timing, about how fast the same traits that make a woman strong can make her difficult once fame turns. She wasn't the worst actress in Hollywood, just one of its most unlucky. Katherine Heigl's career remains a cautionary tale. Talent can open the door, but temperament decides if you stay. And in an industry that punishes honesty more than mediocrity, that might be the hardest role of all to survive. 7. Zac Efron. Zac Efron was built in a lab to be loved. With perfect hair, blue eyes, and a smile that could power a Disney musical, he became the ultimate teenage dream. High School Musical turned him into a global icon, the clean-cut golden boy who could sing, dance, and smirk on cue. For a while, it seemed inevitable that he'd grow into Hollywood's next great leading man. But once the teenage magic faded, the spotlight got cruel. Because when the songs stopped and the scripts got serious, Zac Efron's biggest flaw became obvious. Beneath the charm, there wasn't much else. His early attempts at adult roles were shaky. In Charlie Street Cloud, he was supposed to carry grief and longing, but the emotion never landed. Critics called his performance pretty but empty, a phrase that would follow him for years. In romantic dramas, he looked like he was modeling sorrow instead of feeling it. Every line sounded rehearsed, every tear too deliberate. He was too controlled to be believable, too polished to be human. Then came the comedy era: Neighbors, Baywatch, Dirty Grandpa. These movies were supposed to reinvent him as the funny, self-aware jock, but instead they highlighted his limits. Efron could do physical humor, sure, but when it came to timing or delivery, he froze. His jokes felt mechanical, his reactions a beat too late. He tried to sell chaos but looked uncomfortable living in it. Even when surrounded by better comedians, he played it safe, the handsome straight man with nothing to say. Hollywood kept waiting for the breakthrough that never came. Every few years, Zac Efron would attempt a serious comeback, from the lifeless, the lucky one, to his baffling turn as Ted Bundy in Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile. The idea was bold: cast a pretty face as a monster. But instead of chilling, his performance was oddly flat. He didn't radiate menace, just confusion. Reviewers noted that he was too self-conscious to disappear into darkness. It was the same problem that haunted his career from the start. Zac Efron always looked like he was watching himself act. Off-screen, his story grew more sympathetic. Fame at a young age, addiction struggles, a near-death experience, all of it made him human again. Fans rooted for him, not because of his talent, but because he seemed lost in the same machine that built him. When he reappeared in the Netflix series Down to Earth, relaxed and introspective, it was a glimpse of the person he could have been all along: genuine, unpolished, and finally at peace. Zac Efron isn't a terrible actor out of laziness, he's a victim of image. Hollywood sculpted him into perfection, then punished him for it. Every time he tries to be real, the camera reminds him he's supposed to be flawless. He's proof that beauty can open doors, but it can also trap you inside forever. He might never escape his past as the world's favorite teenage heartthrob, but maybe he doesn't need to. In a business built on illusion, Zac Efron's struggle to seem real might be the most honest performance of all. 6. Milla Jovovich. Milla Jovovich was never meant to blend in. She was designed to dominate the screen. A supermodel turned actress, she carried an otherworldly beauty that made her look less like a person and more like an idea. When she first appeared in The Fifth Element, she didn't just act, she existed, strange and luminous, like she'd been born for sci-fi cinema. But after that breakout role, her career drifted into something else entirely. A long parade of emotionless action heroines, all played exactly the same. Somewhere between the gunfire and the slow-motion kicks, Milla Jovovich forgot how to act. In the Resident Evil franchise, she became both icon and cliché. As Alice, she shot, punched, and glared her way through 6 apocalyptic sequels with the same expression, a blank mask of determination. Her delivery was monotone, her emotions muted, her movements so precise they felt robotic. Critics joked that if the zombies ever learned to feel, she'd still out-stone-face them. By the time the series ended, even her fans admitted they couldn't tell one performance from the next. She didn't evolve, she respawned. Her problem wasn't lack of effort, it was lack of connection. Directors used her like a visual effect, beautiful, physical, deadly, but never demanded depth. In interviews, she often said she did her own stunts because she wanted to feel real. Sadly, that authenticity never reached her dialogue. Whether she was shouting in combat or whispering to a dying friend, the tone barely changed. She was trapped inside her own coolness, the kind of star who looked powerful but never believable. Critics were brutal but consistent. The New York Times once called her a video game character, played by an actress who refuses to update the software. Variety described her work as all surface, no soul. Yet, paradoxically, that surface made her successful. Audiences didn't come to her films for emotion, they came for control, precision, and style. Milla wasn't acting anymore. She was a brand. Off-screen, she's far more interesting, a mother, musician, and thoughtful creator. But Hollywood never gave her roles to match her mind. She became the face of a genre that didn't require her to speak much, only to look flawless while destroying everything around her. She once said, "I like women who are strong and quiet." Unfortunately, she took that literally. Milla Jovovich isn't a bad actress because she lacks talent. She's a bad actress because the industry never asked her to be anything else. She's the perfect symbol of modern action cinema, beautiful, brutal, and emotionally bulletproof. And maybe that's her real tragedy. She mastered strength so completely that she forgot to be human. 5. Orlando Bloom. Orlando Bloom was the kind of star Hollywood dreams, up in focus groups, handsome, soft-spoken, and effortlessly heroic. He didn't just look like a movie star, he looked like a painting come to life. His breakout roles in The Lord of the Rings and Pirates of the Caribbean made him the perfect fantasy idol, the stoic elf, the noble swordsman, the man who always looked ready to pose for a poster. But when the fantasy faded, and Bloom had to carry real emotions instead of a bow or a sword, audiences discovered something missing behind those perfect cheekbones: soul. As Legolas, Bloom was mesmerizing, silent, graceful, and otherworldly. He barely spoke, and that worked. As Will Turner in Pirates of the Caribbean, he was brave and earnest, surrounded by chaos and outshone by Johnny Depp's madness. But when he tried to step out of supporting roles and become a true leading man, the magic vanished. In films like Kingdom of Heaven and Elizabethtown, his line delivery was so flat it made even good dialogue sound lifeless. Critics said he acts like he's afraid to wrinkle his face. Part of the problem was that Bloom never seemed to connect with the material. He moved gracefully, but never felt present. His expressions sat somewhere between confusion and concern, as if he wasn't sure what kind of movie he was in. The Guardian called him a man who looks like he's perpetually smelling something faintly unpleasant. Even when his characters were meant to burn with passion, Bloom's eyes stayed cool and empty. You could see the effort, the posture, the focus, but not the fire. By the late 2000s, his star had dimmed. The roles stopped coming, and his name disappeared from the box office charts. Hollywood had moved on to newer faces, and Bloom, the once crowned heir of epic cinema, was suddenly expendable. His attempt to return in smaller projects and television like Carnival Row showed flashes of sincerity but little growth. He was still the same actor, just older, still beautiful, still safe. Off-screen, Bloom is by all accounts likable, humble, and gracious qualities that make his career all the more frustrating. He isn't a disaster, he's simply unremarkable. He doesn't offend, he doesn't amaze, he exists in a strange limbo of perpetual adequacy. He once said he wanted to be taken seriously as an actor, not just a heartthrob. The tragedy is, he never figured out how. Orlando Bloom's career is proof that looks can open every door, but they can't make anyone stay. He wasn't the worst because he was careless, he was the worst because he was careful. Too polished, too polite, too afraid to break his own image. He was the perfect hero in worlds that weren't real, and the moment he stepped into ours, he disappeared. 4. Gerard Butler. Gerard Butler is the definition of loud without substance. He entered Hollywood swinging gruff voice, rugged charm, that unshakable smirk that promised chaos. After 300, where he screamed his way into legend with "This is Sparta!" audiences crowned him the next great action hero. But somewhere between that iconic kick and his endless parade of near-identical thrillers, Butler stopped acting altogether. He started shouting, growling, and glowering his way through every movie like volume could replace emotion. Early in his career, there were hints of depth. In The Phantom of the Opera, he tried vulnerability, the damaged soul beneath the mask. But even then, critics noticed something off. His intensity came from effort, not instinct. Every emotion was turned up too high, every pause too deliberate. He didn't perform the role, he attacked it. And as soon as 300 turned him into a box office force, that exaggerated energy became his trademark and his curse. By the 2010s, his filmography read like a list of self-parodies. Olympus has fallen, London has fallen, Angel has fallen. In each he played the same grim-faced hero with the same clenched jaw, barking orders, shooting bad guys, and muttering patriotic cliches. Critics joked that Butler was a man who acts exclusively in uppercase. Even when he tried to return to comedy or romance like The Bounty Hunter or Playing for Keeps, he looked lost, as if waiting for an explosion that never came. His acting flaws go beyond repetition, they're rooted in control. Butler never seems comfortable letting a scene breathe. His emotions feel mechanical, his expressions choreographed. You can almost see him calculating his next grimace. The result is exhausting. Every performance feels like he's fighting the script itself. He mistakes noise for passion, confusion for complexity. Still, there's something oddly endearing about his failures. He gives 100%, even when the movie deserves 10. He sweats, screams, and throws himself into walls like a man convinced every project could be his next gladiator. It's hard not to respect that level of misplaced conviction. Audiences may laugh, but they never doubt his commitment. He's not phoning it in, he's over-delivering on the wrong frequency. Off-screen, Butler seems refreshingly self-aware. He jokes about his flops, admits his mistakes, and treats his fans with real warmth. "I'm just trying to have fun," he once said. And maybe that's the secret. He's not chasing greatness, just chaos. He knows he's not subtle, and he's fine with it. Gerard Butler's legacy isn't about skill, it's about stubbornness. He's proof that Hollywood doesn't always reward talent. Sometimes it rewards persistence. He may never win an award, but he'll keep charging through smoke and fire like he deserves one. And, in a strange, almost admirable way, that kind of blind confidence might be the most entertaining bad acting there is. 3. Cara Delevingne. Cara Delevingne was never supposed to be an actress, she was already famous for being a face. With her piercing eyebrows, rebellious energy, and effortless cool, she defined a generation of fashion. She didn't just walk runways, she owned them. So when Hollywood came calling, the transition felt inevitable. The problem? Her modeling instincts, the stillness, the poses, the attitude followed her into acting. On screen, Cara Delevingne didn't transform, she just kept posing, one frame at a time. Her early roles looked promising. In Paper Towns, she played the mysterious dream girl, a role so suited to her aura, it almost worked. She didn't need to act much, she just had to smirk and vanish. But as soon as she had to carry real emotion, the illusion cracked. Her delivery was flat, her tone robotic, her expressions frozen somewhere between boredom and disdain. Critics said she spoke every line like a model reading poetry she doesn't understand. Then came Suicide Squad, the film that turned her acting reputation into a meme. As Enchantress, she slithered, whispered, and waved her arms in circles like she was trapped in an interpretive dance class. It was supposed to be terrifying. It was unintentionally hilarious. Fans called her performance Fashion Week witchcraft. Reviewers said she looked like she was summoning better dialogue. Even in moments meant to show power or pain, she seemed detached, as if she didn't quite believe in the movie or her place in it. Hollywood, eager to turn her into its next edgy superstar, kept giving her chances. Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets, Life in a Year, Carnival Row, but nothing changed. No matter the genre, sci-fi, fantasy, romance, Cara's delivery stayed the same. Her voice hovered between whisper and monotone, her face between smirk and stare. She looked incredible. Of course she always does, but acting isn't about looking, it's about feeling, and that's what was missing. Still, to her credit, Delevingne never pretended to be something she's not. "I'm not a trained actor," she once said. "I'm just trying to learn." That honesty makes her hard to hate. Her failures feel less like arrogance and more like misplacement, a talented person caught in the wrong profession. Off-screen, she's open, funny, and deeply self-aware, all qualities that somehow vanish the second the camera rolls. Cara Delevingne's acting career is a perfect reflection of modern fame. Style without substance, confidence without connection. She's not terrible because she doesn't care. She's terrible because she was never meant to pretend. In the end, she remains what she's always been, a captivating image. Not a storyteller, not a chameleon, just a mood. And in an age where image often matters more than truth, that might be why Hollywood can't quit her even when audiences already have. 2. Sylvester Stallone. Sylvester Stallone was once the heart of Hollywood's underdog story. He wrote Rocky when he had nothing, sold the script for pennies, and refused to let anyone else play the lead. That gamble turned him into an icon, the struggling fighter who made the whole world believe in second chances. But the tragedy of Stallone's career is that somewhere along the way, the man who created such a deeply human character forgot how to act like one. Early Stallone was raw, vulnerable, even poetic. In the first Rocky and the original First Blood, he balanced grit with quiet heartbreak, a man who could punch through walls yet whisper like a wounded soul. But as the sequels piled up, the nuance disappeared. The characters that once felt real became caricatures, muscle-bound, mumbling, indestructible. He turned emotion into noise, subtlety into slow-motion montages. By the late 1980s, Stallone wasn't acting anymore. He was impersonating himself. His dialogue became a blur of growls and grunts, his expressions trapped somewhere between confusion and rage. In Cobra, Over the Top, and Stop, or My Mom Will Shoot, he looked like a man locked in a permanent squint. Critics called him a human bicep in search of a script. The vulnerability that once defined him was gone, replaced by self-parody and steroid swagger. He was no longer the dreamer chasing glory, he was the brand cashing in on it. And yet, the world never stopped watching. Because even at his worst, Stallone had presence. He didn't need words, his face was a story, even when the story made no sense. Fans forgave his clumsy dialogue and wooden delivery because he still radiated something real, conviction. He may have lost control of his craft, but never his belief in himself. That unshakable intensity, equal parts inspiring and ridiculous, became his signature. Over time, he tried to evolve. Films like Copland and Creed reminded audiences that the spark was still there, buried under years of machismo. When given a good script and a director willing to push him, Stallone could still move people. But those flashes only made his decline harder to watch. For every moment of grace, there were 10 of absurdity sequels that refused to die. Lines delivered like slurred poetry, emotion buried under ego. Off-screen, Stallone knows who he is. He laughs at his own cliches, embraces his myth, and never apologizes for his excess. "I'm not a great actor," he once said, "but I'm a great survivor." And maybe that's the truth. His career isn't built on skill, it's built on endurance. He turned failure into legend, mediocrity into muscle memory. Sylvester Stallone may never again capture the fragile beauty of that first Rocky moment, but he doesn't need to. He's not an artist anymore, he's an institution. The man who once made audiences cry now makes them cheer, not for his acting, but for his stubborn refusal to quit. In a strange, poetic way, that might be his best performance of all. 1. Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis once embodied everything Hollywood loved in a leading man: charm, danger, and a smirk that said he'd already won. He was the everyman who bled, joked, and outsmarted villains with nothing but grit and sarcasm. Die Hard made him immortal. For years, he was the gold standard of action heroes, the guy who made explosions feel personal. But somewhere along the way, Bruce Willis stopped acting. His trademark cool turned into disinterest, his intensity into apathy. What began as effortless charisma became something far sadder, a man visibly tired of pretending to care. In the 1990s, he was electric. From Pulp Fiction to The Sixth Sense, he proved he could balance action with depth. He didn't just look tough, he felt human. But by the 2010s, something shifted. His roles shrank, his performances grew mechanical. He started appearing in low-budget thrillers, sometimes a dozen per year, often filmed over a single weekend. He mumbled his lines, avoided eye contact, and looked like he was counting the minutes until his next paycheck. Critics called it sleepwalking cinema. Fans called it heartbreaking. His decline wasn't just artistic, it was personal. Rumors spread that he was difficult on set, refusing direction, demanding millions for a few hours of work. The internet mocked him, listing the endless stream of forgettable titles he fronted. But when the truth emerged that he was suffering from aphasia, a cognitive disorder affecting speech and comprehension, the jokes stopped. Suddenly, what had looked like arrogance revealed itself as struggle. His exhaustion, his distant gaze, his strange pauses, they weren't laziness, they were symptoms. And just like that, Bruce Willis's filmography became a kind of unintentional tragedy, the slow unraveling of a legend in real time. Each performance was a fragment of the man he used to be, fading behind the glare of artificial light and forced dialogue. Even in his weakest moments, though, flashes of the old Bruce would appear: a smirk, a glint, a brief moment where you could almost believe John McClane was still in there, fighting to break free. It's easy to forget how good he once was, because the later years were so bleak. But at his peak, Willis was more than an action hero. He was the soul of blue-collar cinema, the guy who made vulnerability cool. He didn't play perfect men, he played men who hurt and kept moving anyway. That humanity is what made him great, and the loss of it both on screen and in life is what makes his story so heavy. Bruce Willis wasn't the worst actor because he lacked talent. He became one because the very thing that made him great was taken from him. His final performances are hard to watch, not because they're bad, but because they're ghosts. In the end, his legacy is bittersweet, a reminder that even legends can fade, that time always wins, and that behind every smirk there's a man who once gave everything to make us believe in heroes. And that's the list: 15 more movie stars who prove that fame doesn't always come with talent. Some scream instead of act, others pose instead of feel, but all of them remind us why Hollywood never learns. We keep watching their movies, even when we know they're bad. Maybe it's the spectacle, maybe it's nostalgia, or maybe we just love watching the beautiful fail spectacularly. Because in this town, being memorable matters more than being good. So what do you think? Which of these stars still deserves another chance, and which one should have left the camera long ago?